Hello everyone, welcome back to the 31 Days of Halloween. It's actually October now. It's October 2nd. Me and Carly filmed yesterday, and now I'm filming again today. New hair. I love it. But this video is but by Mike from Canada, aka one of my biggest fans, and one of my voice is going in and out because I have not shut up for the last 3 days. So this is going to be interesting, very interesting. But I have coffee, and he is one of my best internet friends in this entire world. He wrote me a little email, if I can get to it because I'm on my phone. It's also 9:58 a.m. Not quite awake, not quite asleep. We're just existing. Nope. He sends me so many emails that I have to go back through and find it. Okay, it's called ghost trains. So that's the topic, is ghost trains. I'll let you use your imagination. In case you didn't know, they're about ghost trains. This is really good. I make really good coffee. Should I be drinking something with this much sugar in it at 10 a.m.? Hell no. Am I gonna? Yes. The first one is the Ghost Train of Medicine Hat, Alberta. I may mess up so many words. I'm not good at English, as you know. You have seen from past videos, I'm not good at it. I'm sorry. I'm trying. During the spring of 1966, Ken Liddell, a columnist with the Lethbridge Herald, interviewed Andrew Staceco, a retired Canadian Pacific Railroad engineer, who told him this story of a collision and a ghost train legend. A year later, Alberta Senator F.W. Gershaw wrote a book called Samus, the Medicine Hat, which made the story famous. The story goes that one night in May 1908, an engineer named Bob Toohey had a stoker named Gus Day were tasked with bringing a passenger train called the Spoken Flyer from Medicine Hat to the easterly town of Dunmore, then continue to the west. The trip required them to navigate the tricky Saskatchewan River Valley Hill. At this point, the railway climbs up a steep hill, then wraps around a cut bank fronting a stream called Ross Creek. This cut bank obstructs the view of the tracks on both sides, preventing both eastbound and westbound train crews from seeing what lies around the corner. On this night, Toohey and Day heard a sound around that corner that no train crew wants to hear: the warning whistle of an oncoming train on a collision course. As they saw the light of the oncoming train heading towards them, all they could do was brace for impact, but the impact never came. At the last possible second, the oncoming train veered to one side and sped past, floating in midair where there were no tracks beside them. Lights could be seen in the spectral cars that flashed by, and ghostly crew could be seen waving at them. Then the apparition vanished into thin air as quick as it came. The two men were so paralyzed by fear, they didn't speak for the rest of the journey. 2 weeks later, Bob Toohey and Gus Day happened to bump into each other on the street. They asked each other what they had seen that night and confirmed they had seen the same thing. Toohey then revealed that he was so spooked by the sighting, he had gone to see a fortune teller. The fortune teller predicted he would die within that month. The two men would part ways after this. Toohey would book 2 weeks off to go stay with relatives in Medicine Hat. Gus Day, on the other hand, brushed off the events and stayed on the job. A few nights later, Day was assigned to a similar route, but with Jay Nicholson as the engineer. The route took them to the same place they had seen the phantom train the night before. The train made another appearance, coming around the corner and floating past with the same spectral crew waving at them. Then on July 8th, 1908, Jay Nicholson boarded the same locomotive. This time, his stoker was H. Thompson. Gus Day had been assigned yard duty that day. The two men set off for the Valley Hill again, and sure enough, another train was spotted. But this time it was daylight, and this was no phantom. It was the number 514 passenger train from Lethbridge, and the engineer driving that train was Bob Toohey, who had just come back from his vacation. The two trains collided. Toohey and Nicholson both died on impact, along with a stoker named Gray and a conductor named Mallet, plus 7 passengers. The only locomotive crew member to survive the crash was H. Thompson, who jumped from the train shortly before the crash. Was the spectral locomotive a premonition of death, or was the collision just a tragic coincidence? That's for you to decide. I don't believe in no coincidence. Never. Never once in my life. I don't know where my twang's coming from. I don't know why people gotta text me at 10 a.m. There's no need to text me at 10 a.m. Just saying. Put my phone on motherfucking do not disturb. Saskatchewan. That is such a big word. Why? Need to get comfy. Okay. The next is the Ghost Light of Saskatchewan. For this next story, we head to St. Louis, but it's not in Missouri. St. Louis, Saskatchewan is a small village of 450 people located approximately 100 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon. This small town has a big story, passed down through the generations, dating back to approximately 1920. The railroad's records don't go back far enough to confirm the event, but legend says that one night a conductor was inspecting the tracks when the train he was riding on suddenly rolled backward and decapitated him. The tracks where that train traveled were removed many years ago, but as a result of this accident, the ghost of that train is said to still haunt that stretch of land. It's also said the ghost of the conductor haunts the location, apparently still looking for his head. There are, however, other versions of the story. Some say the conductor wasn't inspecting the train, but actually fell out the back of a caboose. Others say the ghost isn't a conductor at all, but rather the ghost of a drunken brakeman who lost his head to a passing train. The eyewitness accounts of the apparition vary widely as well. Some say the train appears in the form of a blinding white light. Others say the light is red, just like the light of a red-tinted signal lantern. The size of the light varies from witness to witness as well, and still more report to have seen a big and small light together. But everyone agrees on 2 things. The light is bright enough to be seen from a great distance, and it has no definable source. The story has caused such a stir that it has been picked up by news outlets across the country. Local resident Edward Lucier had seen the light over 50 times and was one of the people interviewed. It was very prominent, the light coming through the bush. It was so obvious what it was. It actually did look like a train. It was just weird. The light would come out and it would reach the bush line and it would fade away, he explained to reporters. Les and Betty Rancourt, a local husband and wife, were also interviewed. Just like Mr. Lucier, they claim to have seen the light more than 50 times. They saw something similar, but with one curious difference. We came here and walked down the track, and I saw this light, which looked pretty much like a car light from a distance. But interesting thing, it had a little red light that moved around it, up and down. The Rancourts went on to explain that seeing the light has become sort of a family tradition. We did that all the time as teenagers growing up. Then, as we got older and got married, our kids started to do that. But despite the numerous eyewitness accounts, the sightings aren't without skepticism. 2 12th grade students from La Ronge, Saskatchewan won science fair gold medals for analyzing and managing to duplicate the ghost light. They determined the light is caused by diffraction of distant vehicle lights. No matter how much controversy it gets, the residents of St. Louis, Saskatchewan still believe in the legend and are content to live with an eerie yet perfectly benign apparition. The ghost light is also recognized by Canada Post, who in 2014 released a stamp depicting the ghost light as part of a series of 5 which depict Canadian ghost stories. The next one is the ghost train of Boston's Bridge. But we can't let Canada have all the fun. Next we go to North Carolina and a story that starts with one of the worst train accidents in Scottish history. Love me some Scottish history. On August 27th, 1891, passenger train number 9, called Fast Mail, was running 34 minutes late on a trip to Asheville from Salisbury. The train was traveling at 35 miles an hour to try and make up for lost time. 5 minutes after it left Statesville, it was crossing Boston Bridge when the train suddenly careened off the side and plunged 65 feet into the creek below. The impact was so violent that many of the passenger cars were completely destroyed, and the sleeper car was found 153 feet from the bridge. 22 people lost their lives. Those not killed in the fall were drowned when they became trapped underwater. Another person died of complications several days later. Amazingly, 29 passengers survived, 9 with serious injuries, and about 20 others walked away, although they were badly bruised and shaken up. These uninjured passengers ran back to Statesville for help. When the rescue team arrived, the bodies were taken to a local tobacco warehouse for identification, and the survivors were taken to local residences and hotels for treatment because Statesville didn't have a hospital. Boston Bridge survived undamaged from the accident, and trains were soon running on schedule again. The ensuing investigation revealed that several spikes had been removed from the rails by suspected saboteurs, which caused the tracks to spread and therefore caused the train to derail. The Richmond and Danville Railroad was experiencing financial difficulties at this time, and many higher-ups in the company feared large claims for compensation. As a result, the pressure to find these saboteurs was very high. For months, the railroad investigators detained and interrogated many people, but were all proven innocent and were released. The case remained unsolved until 1897, when 2 inmates already in the state penitentiary allegedly confessed to the other inmates that they were the ones who removed the spikes. I'm guessing the guards overheard them. These 2 men were later convicted. It was during this 6-year period, from 1891 to 1897, when strange things began to happen. On August 27th of each successive year after the crash, people claimed to hear the sound of train wheels screeching, and the sound of passengers crying out in pain could be heard from the creek. On one occasion, the ghost of a uniformed man carrying a gold watch was seen. It's believed that this is the spirit of baggage master Hugh K. Linster, who was found with a broken neck on the tracks. Fast forward to August 27th, 1941. A husband and wife were driving along the road that ran alongside the tracks to Boston's Bridge when their car had a flat tire. The husband went to go find help, leaving his wife alone with the car. As the woman waited at the side of the road, she heard a train coming and turned to watch it come through the trees and begin to cross the bridge. Suddenly, the train derailed, plunging into the water below. The woman ran across the field and looked down into the creek to see the twisted wreckage of the train. Around that time, a car pulled up and her husband got out with a stranger. She ran back towards them, yelling for help. When the 3 of them ran back, the train wreckage was gone. The men thought she had fallen asleep and dreamed the whole thing up, but the woman insisted she had seen something. After a short time, the tire was changed and the couple was back on the road. On the way to their destination, the wife demanded that they stop by the Statesville train station and ask them if there was an accident. The ticket agent said there was no accident that night, but he explained about the 1891 wreck and how that night happened to be the anniversary. When he told them about the ghost sightings, the wife screamed and fainted. Then, on August 27th, 2010, a real tragedy happened. A group of 10 amateur ghost hunters were walking on Boston's Bridge, hoping to see the ghost train. Sure enough, a train was seen coming up the tracks, and the group thought it was the ghost train, so they stayed where they were. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a real train. The group turned and tried to run the 150 feet to safety. All but 2 made it. 29-year-old Christopher Kaiser was struck and killed, but before his death, he pushed a woman, whose name was never released, off the bridge. The woman fell 30 feet and amazingly survived, but with serious injuries. Some of the ghost hunters were interviewed by police, but most of them fled the state because they were trespassing on railroad property. Surprisingly, there is no mention, none that I could find at least, of any charges being laid as a result of the trespassing. Can you tell my voice is starting to go out? Next is the Pittsfield Ghost Train. Next we go from North Carolina to Massachusetts, and another story that starts with a train wreck. According to an article in the Cranberry Press dated September 8th, 1893, the Chicago Limited Express, which was traveling from Albany, New York to Springfield, Massachusetts, was 7 minutes late going to Pittsfield. It's the only stop in between cities. The train was going 20 miles an hour while crossing a 221-foot long bridge that spanned the west branch of the Westfield River when the bridge collapsed underneath it. The locomotive, 2 day coaches, and a smoker car in the rear escaped the damage, but the buffet car, 2 sleepers, and a dining car plunged 20 feet into the river below. 15 people lost their lives. Several others were injured and taken to a nearby apple orchard for treatment, but were later moved to a couple of houses nearby. The article praised a Dr. George L. Wood and the African American porters and waiters in the dining car as heroes of the rescue. The porters and waiters worked tirelessly tending to the injured despite being injured themselves. After the accident, the investigation revealed that the bridge, built in 1874, was too weak to carry the weight of the heavier and more modern locomotive. The bridge was in the middle of renovations to make it stronger, but the workers were away having dinner at the time of the accident. Jump to February 1958. The customers eating at the Bridge Lunch Diner, along with the owner, John Quirk, were startled when a steam locomotive was seen speeding past the diner around noon. John Quirk claimed the train was so vivid he could see a baggage car and 5 or 6 coaches and could even see the coal in the tender. The train was reported to railway officials, who told them that there was no train running at that time and that steam locomotives hadn't ran on those tracks in many years. Then, in March of that year, the train was spotted again, this time by 2 diner employees and a few early morning customers at 6:30 in the morning. The eyewitness accounts were exactly the same as the one in February. A steam locomotive towing a baggage car and 5 or 6 coaches. After this sighting, however, the train was never seen again, besides some vague rumors and unverified accounts several years later. To this day, it's not known why the train appeared as an apparition, but it's widely believed to be the ghost of the Chicago Limited Express that crashed in 1893. The last one is the ghost train of the Firth of Tay. Next we go from America to Scotland. On September 26, 1877, the Tay Rail Bridge was opened to traffic after 6 years of construction. The bridge was designed to replace the slower train ferries that floated the locomotives across the river. It was designed by Thomas Bouch, and with a span of 2.75 miles, it was a major feat of engineering for the time, so much so that Ulysses Grant and Queen Victoria were among the visitors who came to see it. Thomas Bouch was knighted after Queen Victoria crossed the river on the train. Unfortunately, that success was tragically cut short. The night of December 28, 1879, brought a violent storm, with winds gusting between 71 to 80 miles per hour, one of the worst storms on record. During the storm, a North British Railway passenger train, bound for the city of Dundee, was steaming across when the bridge collapsed underneath it, sending the locomotive and all its cars plummeting approximately 77 feet into the River Tay below. There were no survivors. Newspapers at the time claimed that 75 people were killed, but after sorting through a lot of confusion, it's believed that number is closer to 60. Of that number, only 46 were ever recovered. One of the people killed was Thomas Bouch's son-in-law. In 1880, 2 more bodies were found when they washed up on shore. The Court of Inquiry's investigation included that faulty construction and shoddy workmanship was the cause of the collapse. Thomas Bouch was blamed for not making several components, such as the piers and cross bracing, not strong enough to withstand flexing in the wind. It was also found that Henry Noble, the bridge inspector Bouch had hired, was a bricklayer, not an engineer, and had no knowledge of ironwork. Thomas Bouch died on October 30th, 1880, just 18 months after being knighted, a broken man with his reputation ruined. On July 6th, 1883, construction began on a new and improved Tay River Bridge. This bridge opened in 1887 and is still in use to this day. The piers of the old bridge can still be seen poking out of the water as an ominous reminder of that stormy night in 1879. However, the piers aren't the only reminder of that night. Legend says that on December 28th of each succeeding year, the apparition of a ghost train can be seen crossing the river, floating through the air where the old bridge once stood, before disappearing over the spot where the collapse took place. It is also said the disembodied screams of the passengers can still be heard. Unfortunately, no first-hand eyewitness accounts can be found on the internet, so the legend will for now remain just that, a legend. But the River Tay Bridge disaster will forever be one of the worst disasters in Scottish history, and a good story to tell around the campfire. There you have it. There are a lot of... what is that? That scared me. I thought it was a shadow for a minute. I hope you enjoyed that though. I love reading stories like this. They're so much fun. And I hadn't heard of any of those, so that was super fun to read and learn about, and I hope you enjoyed, and like and comment and subscribe if you liked that. I have absolutely no updates to give you at the moment, so okay, bye.